Yeah, I'm Dr. Moya, and my topic actually has to do with the admin and the research before you actually start writing. So what do you need to do before you start typing the words or, I don't know, submitting your paper to a high impact factor journal? Yeah, I have a very simple talk. I'm going to give you ideas on how to actually generate a scope for your paper, how to select a target journal. This is just going to be a slightly different way from what Prof showed you, and then the analysis part of actually writing a paper. What does that mean? Well, to define a scope, I assume that you've already spoken to Prof Moloto. You're part of a group or any other supervisor, so you'd have been given a selection of topics that the supervisor is interested in, and out of that, you're given a topic, whichever one is interesting to you the most. And so once you pick a topic, what you then do is that you go to literature. When you go to literature, the idea is for you to be able to identify gaps. These are research questions that are either poorly answered or not answered at all, or areas that have not been explored the way you are thinking of exploring them. There are tools to be able to do this, and this is partly what I was actually referring to. There are tools that now employ AI that you can use to actually speed up how you do a literature survey. But not only that, with literature, you're going to get information about who the seminal authors in your field are, what kind of research direction are they actually taking, and all of that fun stuff. And so once you've done the literature review, you're going to define gaps of interest. So this is, you've read as many papers as you can, and you continue reading as many papers as you can, and then you identify themes that are more exciting to you. Let's say, I don't know, 10 themes that are exciting to you about perovskite solar cells, for example. Once you've done that, personally what I normally would say is that you need themes that really align with the tools you have, the skills you have, and your will. What are you actually interested in doing? Now, if 3 of these things align and converge, it's fine. You can take that information and you give it, you move on to step number 4, which I'll touch on. But actually, there's a point there that I was gonna forget. The idea here is that if you don't have the tools or the skills, sometimes it actually helps to think about collaborations. Which people can I now actually collaborate with that can help me either develop the tools or people I can use their expertise on to answer these interesting research gaps. Now, once you've identified the gaps, you go back to your supervisor and you say, Prof, these are the things that I'm actually interested in, maybe in the form of a proposal. These are ideas that you have or things that you think are going to be pivotal for your research. Now, Prof is going to help you then decide on the basis of whatever degree you're doing. So if you're doing a master's, time is going to be a limiting factor compared to when you're doing a PhD. So how many questions can you answer if you're given 2 years or if you're given 3 years? And that really is going to be a crucial thing, which your supervisor will help you to decide on. Once you've identified the gaps, what you're going to do then is that you're going to try and convert all of those gaps into, let's call them research questions. Now, each research question can be a paper or a chapter in your thesis, right? Once that's defined, then you don't stop here. You don't stop here. Effectively, the thing that continues happening is that you're going to be doing, you're going to be doing your literature review almost weekly, because you want to keep up with literature. And the reason for that is that you don't want to, I don't know, first year you read this interesting paper, there's a gap that you've identified, and then a year later, you don't check, a week later, you don't check literature, months later, you don't check literature, and you continue with your work. At the point of submission, people are like, oh, actually, this has already been done. To find that, I'd actually have a friend of mine who had a similar experience, having done all the work. It seemed novel enough until the point of submission. Actually, the time of defense, when you actually get to defend his thesis, where I did my PhD, and it's like, dude, I just found a paper where they did this like 3 years ago. That was at the beginning of his thesis, of his PhD. It's an unfortunate thing. He was lucky in the sense that the people who were reviewing his thesis had not found that paper as well. And so that's the only reason why he was like, so you don't want to bet your potential for graduating on luck. So now you've defined your scope, the research questions that you have. You now, these are the tools that I'd say you can use to define a research scope. So one particular one that I highly recommend is called Scopus AI. Vets has a subscription to this tool, so it's free for everyone to use, as long as you're a student or even a staff member. The pool of information you're pulling from is literally from 27,000 journals. You have 7,000 plus publishers who've put in their abstracts into the database, and you have over 1.8 million citations. The good thing about this is that it's actually curated by a board of independent scientists. So whenever something like this has been used, you also want to have people who actually do sanity checks. As Prof actually mentioned that AI is the issue of hallucinating. So what that is really is just that you find that you ask it a question, you then question its answer, and then it goes like, oh, I'm sorry, actually this is what I meant. And you look at what the answer actually is in light of whatever it is that you know, and you notice that this doesn't actually align. And it's the same with referencing. Just a quick story. We were evaluating third years on specific topics in their cohort. And then I got this really lovely presentation. They had over like 30 references, and I was just curious to see, like, did actually these students look at this topic this extensively? It's a group of 5 third years, and I was like, wow, it's impressive. Their presentation was good, but I was just like, let me just find out what actually happened. The top 3 references were generated by AI because they didn't exist. So when I went to Google, and I was like, is there a paper that is named like this? And I'm like, okay, I'm not finding it. So what I did, I think I was just trying to tease them actually. So I sent them an email with the 3 references, and I said, I'm struggling to find these on Google. Can you please send me these references? They didn't respond to my email anyway. But the key thing about this tool, sorry, I just want to restart the video just to show you what it is that you can do. So in my case, what I was asking it is that what techniques have been used for passivating cesium tin bromide perovskite crystals. So you type in your query, it will show you how it's actually thinking about the question. Just right there. The important thing is that out of this, you can pull out trends. So research trends, where is the research moving? Which themes are quite consistent, for example. So if a lot of people have done work on the passivation of cesium tin bromide perovskites, you'll know just purely after a quick search, because it will show you a tag that this is a persistent theme. So a lot of people are actually exploring this. And then it will also break it down for you to say, okay, these are novel themes, and then it will generate hypotheses of what you can further explore as part of your research to be able to, expand the novelty of your work. So after typing my query, it gives me a summary, and it's a quick search. I mean, within 5 minutes, I was able to get a ton of information referenced, and I can always click on the references to actually find out if they actually exist or not. Are they cited at all or not? Is this new work or is it not? So you can find references, you can actually even find foundational documents. So what that means is that seminal work that relates to your topic. So if you're looking for passivation of perovskite solar cells, in my case, now I know which authors I actually have to read to be able to understand the fundamentals of that topic within 5 minutes. And so I highly recommend that you use this tool for defining your scope. But the cooler thing about it as well is that it can actually give you concept maps. Concept maps are really a cool sort of like mind map of how specific topics evolve as a function of time. So in my case here, okay, I'm saving a concept map. In my case here, because I was looking at passivation, then it's going to tell me there are different types of passivation. It's physical, obstructive, or even chemical. then you click on the chemical node, then it gives you more references that speak on that specific topic. And so I think this is a really powerful way in which you can speed up your research, especially your literature review. But also how you define the direction of your project. I think this is actually a really, really cool tool to be able to use. So if you can use this, it will save you a lot of time. You don't have to keep on hopping from reference to reference without a clear direction of where you're going. Such a thing like the concept map will help you clarify your thoughts. You can expand on it. It doesn't have to be a single, concept map. You can ask follow-up questions to say, okay, I've looked at passivation methods. You've mentioned 3 types. Are there any other types of passivation methods that were not mentioned, or unconventional methods, or even just set a new hypothesis? Can I passivate using a different kind of organic molecule that I'm thinking about? Then Scopus AI will then go like, okay, so there are no references here, or there are fewer references, but pulling from the database that I have, these are the things that you could potentially explore. And I think that's what makes it really, really powerful. So at this stage, it's identifying emerging themes. Yeah, perfect. So you can see at the top, defect passivation in perovskite crystals is a consistent theme. I think I'll scroll down. Lead-free perovskite photodetectors, that's a novel theme. So if you're thinking, okay, so what can I actually do with these perovskites once I've made them? Now you know that, okay, in the photodetector field, there's room for me to actually expand my research into that area without worrying that you've not read enough literature or have not explored the topic well enough. So that is the tool that I'd highly recommend that you use. It's a free tool. You can also use Web of Science, but I find Web of Science is a bit more, it's a very big website, and it's easy for you to get lost in it. It has so many nice, good modules that are not intuitively set on the website. And so it's, yeah, you might not find exactly what you're looking for. But in terms of understanding, let's say, I don't know, an author metric of sorts, you can still use Web of Science to understand the impact of their work or not. Yeah, sorry, so that's the generation of another concept map based on a follow-up question that I was asking. So you can find foundational papers and emerging themes. Okay, you've done your literature review, you continue doing your literature review. How do you find a target journal? A very interesting fact is that close to 75 to 95% of first submission rejections happen at the desk. And the main reason for that is because of misalignment. So you just look at one of these criteria and you're like, okay, one of the most common ones that we like to look at is impact factor. So I just look at a journal, I just type in nanotechnology, and then I look at impact factor and I'm like, that first one, 57, that's the one. That's where I'm going to send my paper. But unfortunately, irrespective of how good your paper is or how good your research is, if your research doesn't actually align with the scope and the aims of the journal, it will likely be rejected. You can choose the hard way, which is to then go to the next one and then just submit without checking the scope. Submit without checking the scope until your paper gets accepted or until it gets outdated, because likely there are people who are doing similar work to yours. So my recommendation is that for you to choose a target journal, firstly understand the scope and the aims of the journal. Once you've done that, and once you've done that, again, you can either do that manually or you can do that with the aid of AI. A lot of publishing houses actually have, they're called journal suggesters. You can either take your topic or your abstract and you put it into that system, and then it's going to suggest to you based on a large database, which is effectively everything that they've published before, where your title or your abstract could fit in terms of the journal. So this increases the likelihood that your paper will be accepted in a specific journal. And then the other reason why papers get rejected is because of not following journal guidelines. So you've done the science, it's excellent, it's consistent with the target journal that you want, but you've not actually formatted everything according to their guidelines. This is either going to delay the submission of your paper, or it's actually going to lead to an outright rejection of your paper. And then finally, of course, we look at impact vector. Yeah, I think I have a mixed relationship with impact vector. It would be lovely to get your research published in like high impact vector journals. But as I'll show you in the last step, that I don't think necessarily that is the main focus you need to keep your eyes on when you're thinking about submitting to a paper. And I'll show you like an easier way of deciding how to submit to a paper. I mean to a journal. Yeah, just an easier way to submit to a journal. Yeah, so this is just an example of what I did. So I went to Springer Nature. I put in my my abstract for a paper that I was, well, I'm in the process of writing. And within seconds, it gives me ideas of where I could actually submit my my paper. I didn't put in any information that is, let's say, IP sensitive, but it's just my abstract, and I can change the abstract anyways. But now I have an idea. Look at that, nature chemistry. Look at that. Yeah, so nature thinks that abstract was good enough for that. But this is just to give you an idea of what tools can you actually use to speed up the process for you to be able to submit at a high impact vector journal without the friction. But it also matters like the content of what you have in the paper. As I said, I'll show you how to actually tease out the best strategy for you to be able to publish at, let's say, high impact vector journals, if you wanted. So tools like these are available for all major publishing houses. But once you have a selection, let's say the top 5 journal, your target journals, you always have to go back to the scope. You always have to go back to the scope. So it's not to say that the AI tools are now replacing the effort that you need to put in on deciding which paper to, which target journal to actually publish in, but these are just tools to help you speed up the whole process. Okay, so I know my abstract can fit into so many journals. Okay, but is the scope of my research consistent with so many journals? If not, then you use that as a filter. Then maybe 2 out of the 5 that we listed here are actually quite consistent with your work, and the likelihood of you publishing there then increases. Yeah, so the analysis part of publishing a paper, or at least before you actually start writing a paper, I think this is the fun part. I had hoped everyone would be having their laptops so that we can actually do this as an exercise. Just to give you an idea of the process that I would highly recommend you go through before you even start writing a paper. How many people have their laptops here and they're connected to the internet?
Yes, everyone.
Yeah, no, I don't. Yeah, I'm not sure if the numbers would work. Groups of 3. Yeah. So if we have 10 laptops, please can people cluster around those with laptops. So the first part of so the first part of this exercise would be, please find a journal of choice. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. So be as ambitious as you want to be. Think of a journal, a target journal that you'd want to submit your work in the future. Right. Pick 1 or 2 articles. If you've already read them, that's actually perfect. Yeah. Just pick those 2, and then Please break them down into, take the papers and break them down into sections. Typically, a scientific paper has the abstract, the introduction, methods, results, and discussions. Break the papers or the paper down into its sections, and then what I'd like you to do, just as an exercise, is that for each section you just look for keywords. It would be nice if you actually get 2 papers, so just looking across the different papers just to see which words are recurrent in these papers. Why is this an important exercise? One, it refines your language, your use of language. So sometimes you find that these ideas, you are expressing them from an experimentalist perspective, not from a writer's perspective. So as an experimentalist, you might be explaining a whole thing that could be said in a single word or even in a sentence. So the minute you get used to or acquainted to the language that's used in a specific target journal, then it primes you to know things like, oh, okay, so I see. Oh, instead of saying, this and this and this and that, I could just simply say this process was applied. Right, so it improves your language, it grounds you in terms of the theories that are important in the journal. So now you understand not only the language that the journal, the target journal uses, but now you also understand the theories that they actually publish on, most likely, and then you understand as well the concepts that are associated with the journal. And then the following part is that you're gonna try and do experimental design. So what do I mean by this? So once you've looked at the journals, 2 of them or more, preferably more, but for the sake of this exercise, just 2. Look at the tools that the people are using, right? Let's say I want to publish in Nature. Right? So my abstract now qualifies for Nature Chemistry. Impact factor 20. Right, that's good. Now, if I go into an article that relates to my work and I open it and I realize, oh, they have aberration corrected TM, they're using DFT, they're using, statistical thermodynamics. Okay, is this something that I can actually do? Is this something that I can actually replicate? So now I'm assessing my tools, my skills, and my will. Right, so am I actually able to do this? If I see that most papers actually have all of these things consistently, and I insist that I want to publish in this paper, it's either I have to develop the tools and the skills, or I can speak to my boss to buy the tools if they have the money. Right. But if I happen not to have those things, then I can think, okay, no, I've seen like the seminal authors in these areas. What I know that I'm really good at, let's say, synthesis, right? But what they're actually really good at is the computational part. Is it possible for me to then reach out to them to say, hey guys, look, I'm from South Africa, this is the research that I'm doing, but I'm interested in this aspect of your work. Can you actually assist me in doing this for my research, or can we do some sort of collaboration? Yeah, but, so that gives you the thing, help in deciding how you're gonna design your experiments. But once you've done that, the numbers, and I think this is the crucial part, the numbers will actually help you set out a sensible plan. For example, if I were to open my Nature Chemistry paper and I realize, oh, okay, so abstract, 500 words, introduction, 1,500, methods, 2,000 words, and then I go through the whole process. These are averages, of course. I've looked at a lot of papers in this journal, and my averages are like, oh, okay, so I have a total of like 5,000 words in this article. So practically, the barrier between myself and publishing in this journal is these 5,000 words. I can set a target to say, okay, maybe every day I want to write 50 words a day. That gives you a target. That gives you a sense of when you're actually going to finish this paper if you write it at that pace. And of course, sections are different. Things are going to be some areas are going to be easier than others, but the whole idea is for you to be able to generate a plan that is actually tangible. Can I write 50 words a day? Yeah, probably. Then if I have, 10,000 words, how long will it actually take me to finish this paper? and submit it. You see the key idea behind this really is to be able to understand if you have the tools and the skills that are necessary for you to publish in that journal, but also for you to generate a plan that is consistent with the journal target, the target journal that you want to publish in. Sorry, I have 5 minutes now. So the idea was that you do this thing, you write the title, the abstract, you note down the total numbers on the sites. Once you've done that, you use that as a framework for you to be able to decide, okay, I want to publish in Nature. Nature is 5,000 words, 3,000 words, whatever. I'm setting a goal that I'm going to write so many words a day for me to be able to publish at this given point in time. But of course, this is not a linear process, it's quite iterative. For you to be able to do this, you'll notice that these processes are not, as I say, they're not linear. You'll experience friction in some areas, defining, the scope. You will be inundated with lab work, demonstrations, and other responsibilities in life. And so what you actually need is a group of people, so you can create your own, have a group of people that you challenge each other to be able to publish papers. And the reason for that is that when the going gets tough, you need people who are going to help you think clearly. So clarify your thoughts, people to talk to you and people to talk to. But you also need people who are going to resuscitate the dream. Sometimes writing a paper is very difficult. It can be a thing that you put to the last, simply because of just the amount of effort it will demand. You need people who are going to remind you that you're in this together, you're united, people to cheer you and to springboard you as you reach for the stars. I think for me that's it. Basically for you the admin that's related to you writing a paper has to do with defining the scope, identifying target journals, and then running that analysis for you to generate a sensible plan that's broken down into as fewer steps or as many steps as you can. Thank you.
Okay, so the time is very limited for some reason today. I don't know, but it's winter and longer nights, shorter days. So we'll just give other a few minutes maybe for questions, clarities. But the exercise, I think we might be able to incorporate it over the next few days, basically. So we shall try to incorporate the exercise.
Sure.
Questions? I think was there a question, Ellen?
No, I'm saying these performance.
Oh. And maybe have questions, comments, or are you taking any questions?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to take questions, but yeah, if there are no questions, then my job is done.
Okay, there are questions.
Apart from, because Scopus AI pulls from journals that
Yeah.
and so we know that it's very, very accurate.
Yeah.
So as you were talking, I was wondering that would using something like, I think it's Google Gemini.
Sure.
I'm sure that Google Gemini can pull from hundreds.
Sure.
Would that also be something that's acceptable? If it specifically pulls from Google Scholar.
Yeah, if the thing is, you see, with AI, the biggest limitation is actually not. It's not the fact that you don't pull from reputable resources. It's because you pull from many resources, some of which are not reputable. So if you did the same search here on Gemini, it will give you websites, it will give you reputable journals, it will give you blogs and all of that. And so I think, again, you need to exercise caution there. It does pull from Scholar, but it's not limited to Scholar, and hence the information that you get is going to be, you're going to have to judge that for yourself effectively. Like, is it actually good enough for me to pull information from that? Whereas with Scopus AI, you know for a fact that these are peer-reviewed journals. Not only what I can say to you is that there is sorry. Yeah, sure. Yeah, so with Scopus AI, what they're applying is what's called a retrieval-assisted or retrieval-augmented generation. What that means is that they limit the model's ability to search outside of its database. And so I know for a fact that everything I'm getting, or whatever answer I'm getting, is actually within the curated pool of information. Whereas if it's just the general model, unfortunately, it's not limited. It has to be trained to be useful to as many people as possible, not just academics. Because sometimes you ask a question, you just want to understand a bit. You're not trying to go on a deep dive to, understand perovskite crystals and all of that fun stuff. So Gemini is a good tool, but I wouldn't say it's a good tool even when it's unvetted. You'd have to vet it. So even if with ChatGPT, it's the same thing. If it's a reg ChatGPT type query, that's fine. But if it's not a reg type query, then yeah, you are going to have to do the analysis yourself to see, does this actually make sense? Yeah.
Let's give the students a chance. Grace?
Thank you, Dr. Arthur. Just out of curiosity,
Yeah.
because you mentioned that the impact factor.
Yeah.
And then you say that maybe your work, say if you want to publish to a certain journal that has quite a good impact factor, and
Yeah.
then okay, so I have a paper,
Yeah.
and then it's a good paper,
Yeah.
and then I want to publish it to a good journal with a good impact factor.
Yeah.
So aside from what you said earlier, what other factors would then override a high impact factor journal? Like, if I have to publish, what other things would I have to consider apart from the impact factor that would override it and
Sure.
say, okay, even though this journal has a less of an impact, I'd rather publish with it as opposed to like a high impact
Yeah.
factor?
Yeah, so I think I partly mentioned it here. So the first thing the reason why you publish your work and it undergoes peer review is that you believe that your work is actually good, right? So you believe that your work is actually good enough. But journals have scopes. So no matter how well executed your research is, if my journal is focusing on the synthesis, pure synthesis, and you've just done a bit of synthesis, but you've done like an incredible amount of characterization, right? So you've done synthesis, but when you look at the whole journal, it's largely about like the different characterization techniques that you've used. The editor is just going to look at that and go like, no, it doesn't align.
Okay. And aside from that,
Aside from that, that would be how you handle the data. Again, so if you do the analysis, you'll notice that there are people who do, let's say, for example, nature chemistry, for example, and they're going to speak about mechanisms, they're going to include computation, they're going to include experimental work, they're going to include different kinds of characterization tools that you might not have. So if I can see that, oh, okay, no, it seems like there are these tools that they generally use within this field, and I don't actually have access to any of them, yeah, the likelihood of me just successfully submitting to that journal, again, that's going to be a questionable thing. And this is outside of all the ethical things that Prof spoke about. If your paper, they find that there's plagiarism, it's gone. It's gone. If they find out that the way you collected your data didn't account for a specific ethical component that is specific to that journal, unfortunately, they would reject your paper for that reason. So I think it's multifaceted, unfortunately, which is why reading the guidelines, so the formatting, I know sometimes, you've written your paper, submitted it to a journal, it gets rejected, you don't want to do any more work, and so now you're going to try and find a journal, maybe highish impact factor, that doesn't require you to tweak your paper a lot. Right, and so sometimes that's where you miss the formatting again, and then you submit it, they're like, nice paper, really novel, great, but it's not formatted or it's not suitable for submission to this specific journal. So as I'd say, I think aim as high as you'd like, but then ensure that you have the tools and the skills to actually back up that submission, because then it wouldn't make sense for people to use high-end instrumentation and high-level rigorous analysis compared to your work, and then you expect to be judged by the same people to have quality or at least comparable quality. So I think those are the factors. If you read the guidelines, the author guidelines, and you align your research with their scope, I think you've done most of the work. Then you can look at the impact factor and think, okay, so of the options I have, which one has the highest impact factor? Does the scope align? Am I following their guidelines? Yes. Then you submit. And then they reject your paper. But they will tell you why they're rejecting your paper. No, they will tell you why they're rejecting your paper. It's either you change your paper so that it still stays within that journal, or you go like, actually, you know what? I found a better paper. Maybe it's 5 points down in terms of impact factor, but it's 5 points down in terms of impact factor, but it's still good enough. I'll have enough reach. In fact, actually, sometimes for your specific papers, the impact factor of the journal might not be the thing that you look for. There are other metrics that you could use to actually improve the visibility of your own research on LinkedIn and other databases where you can push your work so that you get more citations. When people look at your papers then on Google, they're like, oh wow, she has a really good H index. Yeah, so you're still almost getting the similar benefits as to like having one single paper that's accepted in Nature and not well advertised because it's in Nature, compared to slightly mediocre paper that is properly advertised and people are using that paper. So yeah. Thank you.
Thank you to Dr. Alba.